I was sitting at my kitchen table, weak from hunger, staring at an empty cabinet when my daughter Patricia walked in unannounced with groceries. The shock on her face cut through me like a knife. She demanded to know why I had no food when I received $8,000 monthly from my pension. Before I could explain, my daughter-in-law Brenda entered through the back door, holding shopping bags from expensive stores. Her voice was cold as winter steel when she stated that she controlled all of my money now. Patricia slowly removed her earrings, setting them on the counter with deliberate precision. The air became electric with tension. Let me take you back 3 months to help you understand how I ended up in that desperate situation. My name is Casper, and I'm 65 years old. For 40 years, I worked for the Postal Service in Columbus, Ohio, delivering mail through rain, snow, and blazing summer heat. I built a comfortable life, nothing fancy, but solid and secure. My house on Maple Street is modest, but paid off completely. Every month, my pension deposits $8,000 into my account, enough to live comfortably and help my family when needed. 2 years ago, my wife Dorothy lost her battle with cancer. The house felt enormous and empty without her laughter, her cooking smells, her presence in every room. I developed routines to fill the silence. Morning coffee at 6, reading the newspaper cover to cover, tending the small garden Dorothy loved, walking to the diner on Wednesdays for meatloaf. Simple pleasures that kept me going. My son, Marcus, is 38, married to Brenda for 12 years. They have 2 beautiful children, Emma, who's 10, and Jake, who's 7. I love those grandkids more than my next breath, but I saw them less frequently than I wanted. Marcus works as a middle manager at an insurance company, one of those jobs with long hours and constant pressure. Brenda stays home with the kids, or at least, that's what she told everyone. On a Sunday afternoon in late August, Marcus and Brenda showed up at my door. Something felt off immediately. Marcus kept shifting his weight from foot to foot, not meeting my eyes. Brenda sat on my couch with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her hands folded in her lap like she was posing for a portrait. Marcus cleared his throat 3 times before starting to talk. They were struggling financially, he explained. Brenda had needed surgery earlier that year, and even with insurance, the medical bills were crushing. Their car had major transmission problems that cost $3,000 to repair. The kids' private school tuition had increased. Credit card debt was mounting. They were drowning, and Marcus looked ashamed admitting it to his father. I felt terrible for them. What parent wants to see their child struggle? I asked how I could help, thinking maybe a loan of a few $1,000s to ease the pressure. That's when Brenda leaned forward, and her whole demeanor changed. She wasn't asking anymore. She was presenting a solution she'd already decided on. She suggested that since I was getting older and living alone, I might forget to pay bills or manage money properly. Her words were sweet like honey, but there was something underneath that made my stomach tighten. Why didn't I add her to my bank account as a joint holder? She was excellent with finances, she assured me. She could make sure all my bills were paid on time while also helping them through their rough patch. Just 6 months, she promised. Temporary. Then came the manipulation that I'm embarrassed to admit worked on me. Brenda talked about how Dorothy would have wanted me to help family. She painted a picture of me struggling alone, confused, vulnerable. Marcus nodded along, though he looked increasingly uncomfortable. She sent Emma and Jake over the next day with handmade cards covered in hearts and crayons that said, "We love you, Grandpa." She called me every evening that week, her voice dripping with concern, calling me Dad in that affectionate way that made me feel needed. Loneliness is a powerful thing. After Dorothy died, the silence in my house was deafening. The idea of being useful to my family, of helping my son and connecting more with my grandchildren, overwhelmed my common sense. After 3 days of Brenda's gentle but persistent pressure, I agreed. On a Thursday morning, I drove to First National Bank with Brenda beside me in her sedan. The bank manager, Gerald, had known me for 15 years. When I explained what I wanted to do, his expression changed. He asked to speak with me privately in his office. Gerald closed the door and sat across from me, his face serious. "Had seen situations like this before," he said carefully. "Adding someone to your account gives them complete access to everything. They can withdraw, transfer, even try to remove you from your own account." He suggested alternative arrangements instead. automatic bill payments, a limited power of attorney for specific purposes, a separate account for helping Marcus if I wanted. I brushed off his concerns. Gerald didn't understand. This was family. Brenda wasn't some stranger. She was my daughter-in-law, the mother of my grandchildren. Family comes first, I told him firmly. Gerald looked sad, but completed the paperwork. Brenda signed with a flourish, thanked Gerald with a brilliant smile, and we left. For 2 weeks, everything seemed normal. Then on a Tuesday morning, I went to the ATM outside the grocery store to withdraw $50 for my weekly shopping. The machine made a grinding noise and spit out a receipt. Insufficient funds. Balance. $12.37. I stared at that receipt, confused. My pension of $8,000 had been deposited 5 days earlier. I'd seen the notification email. There had to be a mistake. I drove straight to the bank, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Gerald pulled up my account on his computer, and his face went pale. Over the past 2 weeks, Brenda had made 11 large withdrawals and transfers. $4,000 here, $2,000 there, $1,500 for something else. The account had been systematically drained. Gerald looked at me with pity and said the words I was dreading. She has full legal access as a joint holder. These transactions are all authorized. I called Marcus from the bank parking lot. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. I called Brenda. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and cheerful, like we were old friends chatting. "Oh, don't worry, Dad," she said when I explained about the empty account. "I'm managing everything now, remember? All your bills are being paid. It'll bring you some cash later for groceries." Her tone was patronizing, like speaking to a confused child. "Later when?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Soon," she said vaguely. "I'm busy today. Maybe tomorrow. Or this weekend. Don't worry so much. It's not good for your blood pressure." She never brought the cash. Not that day. Not that weekend. Not ever in the way I needed. The next month was the longest of my life. I discovered the full nightmare of what Id agreed to. Brenda changed the online banking password, locking me out of even seeing my own account. When I called the bank, they confirmed only she could change it now. She stopped answering my calls. When I left voicemails, she texted back brief messages. "Busy with the kids. Everything's fine. Stop worrying." Marcus became a ghost. When I finally reached him at work, he sounded harassed and distant. "Dad, Brenda's handling it. I'm slammed here. I trust her with this stuff. She's better at money management than I am." When I tried to explain I had no access to my own money, he said, "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. I'll talk to her tonight." He never did. Or if he did, nothing changed. Once a week, Marcus would show up at my door with an envelope containing $50 in cash. From Brenda. He'd say, not meeting my eyes, to help with groceries. $50 out of 8,000. He'd hand it over with an apologetic shrug and leave quickly, like staying might force him to confront what was happening. My life became about rationing and sacrifice. I'd stand in the grocery store with a calculator, choosing between oatmeal and bread. I bought the cheapest cuts of meat, stretched them across multiple meals. I ate plain oatmeal for breakfast because it was filling and cheap. Dinner was canned soup, sometimes just broth with crackers. I lost weight rapidly, my pants hanging loose, my shirts baggy. October brought cold nights. I kept the thermostat at 60 degrees to save money, wearing 2 sweaters and Dorothy's old cardigan that still smelled faintly of her perfume. I canceled my newspaper subscription, something I'd had for 30 years. The cable TV was next. I stopped driving except for essentials, walking the 2 miles to the grocery store to save gas money. Emma and Jake used to visit every Saturday morning. We'd make pancakes and watch cartoons. Now they came maybe twice a month, and Brenda waited in the car, honking the horn if they stayed past 30 minutes. The kids seemed confused and sad. Emma hugged me extra tight before leaving, whispering, "Mom says you're teaching us about being responsible with money." My heart broke, but I smiled and said nothing. I couldn't burden these children with adult problems. My neighbor Harold noticed first. Harold is 72, retired from the fire department. direct and observant. He commented that I looked thin. I brushed it off as eating healthier. He didn't believe me. He started inviting me for dinner, but I was too proud to accept regularly. Accepting felt like admitting defeat. Mrs. Patterson, who lives on the other side, left a casserole on my porch with a note. Made too much. Enjoy. I knew it was charity disguised as neighborly kindness, and while I was grateful, the shame burned in my chest. By late October, I couldn't avoid the truth anymore. I needed to confront this situation directly. I drove across town to Marcus and Brenda's house in the newer subdivision, a neighborhood of large homes with perfect lawns and two-car garages. Their house was a two-story colonial with white pillars and black shutters. In the driveway sat a brand-new silver SUV with temporary dealer tags still in the window. My chest tightened. A new SUV, while I was eating soup from a can and wearing 2 sweaters in my cold house. Brenda answered the door in expensive athletic wear, her hair freshly highlighted, her nails perfectly manicured. She didn't invite me in. She stood in the doorway, blocking my view of the interior, and asked what I needed with barely disguised annoyance. I asked about my money, about access to my account, about the new SUV in the driveway. Her face transformed from fake concern to cold steel. "I've paid all your essential bills," she said flatly. "You have a roof over your head, don't you? Your utilities are on." "You're being dramatic, Casper. This is exactly why we needed to manage your finances. You don't understand how money works anymore." I felt my anger rising, something I rarely let surface. "I'm not dramatic," I told her. "I'm hungry. I need my medications refilled. I need access to my own pension." Her eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so any neighbors wouldn't hear. "If you make trouble, we'll have to discuss whether you're competent to handle your own affairs anymore. At your age, with your confusion, maybe you need a conservatorship. Maybe a judge should decide if you can manage your money. Is that what you want? A legal battle about your mental capacity." The threat hung between us like poison gas. Conservatorship, she was threatening to have me declared incompetent. The humiliation, the loss of autonomy, the public spectacle of it all would destroy me. I left without another word. Driving home with tears I refused to let fall until I was safely inside my empty house. The next day, I used $35 of my $50 to consult an attorney. Thomas Bradley's office was downtown. Small but professional. He listened to my story, reviewed the bank documents I brought, and gave me news that shattered my remaining hope. Because Brenda was a joint account holder, she had complete legal access to all funds. Removing her required either her voluntary signature or a court battle. The court process would take months and cost thousands in legal fees I didn't have. I could file for financial elder abuse, but proving it was difficult when she was legally authorized to access the account. The process was slow, expensive, and uncertain. I walked out of Bradley's office feeling defeated. I had no money for a legal battle. I had no proof that would convince a judge quickly. I had nothing but growing desperation. By late November, I was eating 1 meal a day. My cabinets were nearly empty, except for rice, oatmeal, and a few cans of soup. I'd lost 23 pounds in 3 months. My blood pressure medication was running out, and I couldn't afford the $90 refill at the pharmacy. I stopped taking it, rationing the remaining pills. I sat in my cold house day after day, wearing layers of clothes, too ashamed to tell anyone the full truth. Pride is a terrible companion to suffering. I couldn't bear for my daughter Patricia to know how badly I'd failed, how foolish it'd been. I couldn't face the pity in Harold's eyes if I told him everything. I isolated myself, withdrawing from the world. One morning in early December, I stood up from the kitchen table, and the room spun. I grabbed for the counter but missed, falling hard to the linoleum floor. I lay there, too weak to get up, staring at the ceiling. 2 hours passed, maybe 3. I lost track of time. My body felt heavy and distant. I wondered if this was how it would end, alone on my kitchen floor, starving in a house I'd worked 40 years to pay for. Finally, I managed to crawl to the phone hanging on the wall. My hands shook as I dialed Harold's number. He answered on the second ring, his voice cheerful until he heard my weak greeting. 20 minutes later, he was at my door with a key I'd given him years ago for emergencies. Harold helped me to the couch. He brought water and made me drink slowly. He went to his house and returned with chicken soup and bread, sitting with me while I ate. When I finished, he asked quietly what was happening. The whole truth spilled out. Every detail, every humiliation. Harold's face went from concern to fury. "Someone who loves you needs to know," he said firmly. "I'm calling Patricia." I begged him not to. Patricia was busy with her career in Chicago. She didn't need this burden. She'd be disappointed in me for my stupidity. Harold ignored my protests. He picked up my phone and called Patricia's number, leaving a message when she didn't answer. "This is Harold Brennan, your dad's neighbor. Your dad needs you. Please come home as soon as you can. It's important. I need to tell you about my daughter Patricia so you understand what happened next." Patricia is 42 years old, a corporate attorney at a major firm in Chicago, 3 hours north of Columbus. She graduated top of her class from law school, passed the bar on her first try, and built a reputation for being brilliant, relentless, and uncompromising. She's single, focused entirely on her career, and visits every few months when she can take time away. Patricia and Brenda have never gotten along. From the beginning, Patricia saw through Brenda's sweet facade. At family dinners, she'd watch Brenda with narrow eyes, noting the subtle manipulations, the way Brenda positioned herself as the victim in every story, the extravagant purchases, followed by complaints about money problems. Patricia warned me once, about 2 years after Marcus and Brenda married, that Brenda was a user. Id dismissed it as personality conflict between two strong-willed women. 3 days after Harold's message, on a Friday morning, I heard a key in my front door. Patricia walked in carrying 2 large bags of groceries. She was wearing a business suit and looked like she'd driven straight from a meeting. She took one look at me sitting at the kitchen table and froze. "Dad!" Her voice cracked. She set down the groceries and walked over slowly, studying my face, my gaunt frame, my baggy clothes. "What happened to you?" I tried to deflect, saying it'd been under the weather, nothing serious. Patricia wasn't buying it. She walked to my kitchen and opened the cabinets. Empty. Opened the refrigerator. Nearly empty. She checked the thermostat. 60 degrees. She looked at the pile of unopened medical bills on my counter. When she turned back to me, her face was pale with shock, and her eyes were blazing with barely controlled rage. "Dad, you get $8,000 a month from your pension. Where is it?" I felt the shame rise up, hot and suffocating. I couldn't look at her. I stared at my hands and tried to explain. The words came out jumbled and pathetic. Patricia listened without interrupting, but I could see her jaw clenching tighter with every sentence. When I finished, she asked quietly, "Why didn't you call me? I didn't want to burden you." I was embarrassed. I thought I could fix it. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, collecting herself. Then she went through my mail systematically, finding old bank statements from before Brenda changed the password. She looked at my medical bills, my utility notices, the disconnection warning from the cable company before I canceled. She was piecing together the timeline. And with every new piece of evidence, her fury grew more focused and cold. "I'm going to fix this," she said quietly. "I'm taking time off work. I'm staying here, and I'm going to destroy whoever did this to you." As if summoned by some cosmic sense of timing, we heard the back door open. I'd forgotten that Brenda had taken a copy of my back door key months ago, claiming she needed it for emergencies. She walked in without knocking, carrying multiple shopping bags with designer store logos. She froze when she saw Patricia. The 2 women stared at each other across my kitchen. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brenda recovered quickly, her face rearranging into a warm smile. "Patricia, what a wonderful surprise. I didn't know you were visiting. I was just bringing your dad some groceries." Patricia looked pointedly at the shopping bags from Nordstrom and Sephora, then at my empty cabinets. Her voice was arctic. "Those aren't groceries, Brenda?" Brenda's smile tightened at the edges. "Well, I was going to stop at the grocery store after. I've been managing your father's finances, helping him since his getting older, and sometimes forgets things. It's been such a help to him. Haven't I been helpful? Dad." Patricia turned to me. "Dad, did you give Brenda permission to take all of your money?" The directness of the question cut through my embarrassment. No. I gave her access to help pay bills and help them with a temporary financial problem. I didn't give permission for her to take everything. Patricia turned back to Brenda. You've been stealing from my father. Brenda actually laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. Stealing? I'm on the account legally. I haven't stolen anything. And frankly, Casper offered, we had expenses, medical bills, the kids' school, and he wanted to help his grandchildren. This is a family matter, Patricia. You live 3 hours away. You don't know what's been happening here. Then explain to me, Patricia said, her voice dangerously quiet. Why my father has lost 23 pounds, can't afford his medications, and is living in a 60-degree house eating 1 meal a day while you're carrying bags from Nordstrom. Brenda's face flushed. That's his choice. I've paid his essential bills. Hes being overdramatic. This is exactly why we needed to help manage his money. He doesn't understand financial priorities. Patricia asked one more question. How much of my father's pension have you given him access to over the past 3 months? Brenda lifted her chin defiantly. I manage the account. I decide what expenses are priorities, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm a legal joint account holder. Then Brenda made her fatal mistake. She smirked. An actual smirk. Like Shed won a game. I control it. All of it. And there's nothing you can do about it. Patricia reached up slowly and removed her left earring. Then her right. She set them carefully on my kitchen counter, never breaking eye contact with Brenda. I recognized this gesture immediately. Patricia only removed her earrings when she was about to fight without any restraint, a habit from her childhood that meant gloves were coming off. Patricia's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, which somehow made it more terrifying than shouting. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. She pulled out her phone and dialed, putting it on speaker. A man answered, Frank Delgado. Frank, it's Patricia Holloway. I need you in Columbus by Monday morning. Elder financial abuse case. Forensic accounting on every transaction for the past 3 months. I'm representing my father pro bono, and I want a complete financial autopsy. It'll be there, Frank replied without hesitation. Patricia ended the call and locked eyes with Brenda, whose smirk had vanished. I'm going to bury you. I'm going to document every illegal purchase, every fraudulent transfer, every penny you stole. I'm going to file criminal charges for elder abuse and financial exploitation. I'm going to make sure you face consequences that will follow you for the rest of your life. Brenda tried to leave, but Patricia stepped in front of the door. We're not done. Sit down. My father is going to tell me everything that's happened. Every detail. Every conversation. Every threat you made. And you're going to sit here and listen to exactly how this is going to end. Brenda's hands were shaking as she sank into a kitchen chair. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something besides despair. I felt hope. Patricia didn't waste a single moment. She'd already taken 2 weeks off from her firm, telling them it was a family emergency. That Friday evening, she drove to the grocery store and returned with enough food to fill my refrigerator and cabinets. She turned the thermostat up to 72 degrees. She sat with me and made a list of all my medications, then drove to the pharmacy and paid for refills out of her own pocket, over $300. Saturday morning, she took me to my doctor for a complete checkup. Dr. Reynolds had been my physician for 18 years, and his face showed alarm when he saw me. I'd lost 26 pounds since my last visit 4 months earlier. My blood pressure was dangerously high from missing medications. I was dehydrated and malnourished. Dr. Reynolds asked pointed questions about my living situation, and Patricia answered honestly. He documented everything, providing detailed medical notes about my condition directly resulting from financial abuse. That afternoon, Patricia photographed my house. Empty cabinets, the thermostat set low, unpaid medical bills, disconnection notices. She recorded Harold's account of finding me collapsed on the kitchen floor. She got written statements from Mrs. Patterson about the casseroles she'd left, about noticing my weight loss and withdrawn behavior. Every detail was documented with the precision of a prosecutor building a case. Monday morning, Frank Delgado arrived at my house by 9 o'clock. Frank is a forensic accountant, mid-50s, with gray temples and sharp eyes that miss nothing. Patricia had worked with him on corporate fraud cases worth millions. He set up his laptop at my dining room table and went to work. Within 2 hours, Head subpoenaed 3 months of complete bank records. Patricia had filed an emergency motion with family court Sunday night, and a judge had granted it Monday morning, giving Frank legal authority to access everything. What they found was worse than it imagined. Frank laid it out methodically. Over 3 months, Brenda had withdrawn or transferred $23,417 from my account. He tracked every transaction. $4,000 to a luxury furniture store, $2,000 at a spa and salon, $3,700 in designer clothing purchases, $1,500 at a jewelry store, $2,000 in casino ATM withdrawals, $5,000 toward the down payment on that new SUV, hundreds more in restaurant charges, entertainment, travel. None of this, Frank said, looking at me with sympathy, went to medical bills, kids' tuition, or car repairs. Those were lies. This was pure, personal spending. Patricia reviewed every receipt, every statement, building a timeline. She cross-referenced charges with social media posts. Brenda had been foolish enough to post photos of her purchases online, bragging to friends. Patricia screenshot everything. That evening, Patricia called Marcus. Her voice was ice. "You have 1 hour to get to Dad's house. If you're not here, I'm filing charges against you as well for enabling financial elder abuse." 53 minutes later, Marcus pulled up. He looked terrible, exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. His clothes wrinkled like Head slept in them. He walked into my house like a man approaching his own execution. Patricia didn't give him time to sit. She showed him the bank records, the purchases, the timeline. Marcus' face crumbled with every new revelation. He sank into a chair and put his head in his hands. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to God, I didn't know it was this bad." "You knew something," Patricia shot back. "You delivered $50 a week, like some kind of allowance to your own father. You knew." Marcus looked at me, tears in his eyes. "I thought Brenda was borrowing a little to help with actual bills. She told me she was paying your utilities, your insurance, buying your groceries. I've been working 60-hour weeks. I trusted her. I was stupid and weak, and am so sorry, Dad." The anguish in his voice was real. I could see it. My son wasn't evil. He was weak, dominated by a stronger personality, willfully ignorant because facing the truth meant facing his failed marriage. Marcus told us what I hadn't known. His marriage had been falling apart for over a year. Brenda became obsessed with their wealthier neighbors, constantly comparing their lifestyle to others. She maxed out 4 credit cards buying things they couldn't afford. The medical bills were real, about $8,000, but she hadn't paid them. She spent my money on herself instead. Marcus had been sleeping on the couch for months. He was afraid of her temper, afraid of losing his children in a divorce, afraid to stand up to her. "She threatened me," Marcus admitted. "She said if I ever challenged her about money, she'd take the kids and make sure I never saw them. She said she'd claim I was abusive. She controlled everything, and I was too much of a coward to fight back. And now she's done the same thing to you, and I helped her by doing nothing." Patricia's expression softened slightly. She recognized the patterns of emotional abuse. Marcus was a victim too, though that didn't excuse his inaction. The next morning, Patricia and Frank went to Marcus and Brenda's house with a formal legal notice. Brenda had hired her own attorney, a cheap lawyer named Dennis Wright, who specialized in defending deadbeats and scammers. Wright sent a letter claiming Brenda was legally protected as a joint account holder and hadn't committed any crime. Patricia's response was surgical. She filed a civil suit for financial exploitation and elder abuse. She filed a police report with the Columbus Police Department. She submitted the forensic accounting to Adult Protective Services. She contacted the local news station, and a reporter started asking questions about elder financial abuse in the community. Word spread through my neighborhood faster than wildfire. Harold, Mrs. Patterson, and 5 other neighbors offered to provide witness statements. They'd all noticed my decline. They'd all seen Brenda's new SUV and expensive clothes, while I was clearly struggling. The bank manager, Gerald, provided a deposition about his warnings to me and his concerns about the joint account arrangement. The community rallied around me in a way that broke through my isolation. These people had noticed. They had cared. I'd been so trapped in shame that I hadn't realized I wasn't alone. Emma and Jake were staying with Marcus at his friend's apartment while the marriage imploded. Marcus sat them down and explained, in age-appropriate terms, that their mother had done something very wrong. She'd taken money that belonged to their grandfather and spent it on herself, leaving me without food or medicine. Emma wrote me a letter in her careful 10-year-old handwriting. Dear Grandpa, I'm sorry Mom hurt you. I didn't know. I love you more than all the stars. Love, Emma. Jake drew me a picture of us fishing together with a big sun and the words I miss you in crayon. I cried reading those. Real tears for the first time through all of this. Then Patricia found something that changed everything. Deep in the bank records, Frank discovered that 6 weeks into controlling my account, Brenda had opened a separate account at a different bank entirely. She transferred $4,000 into it, listing the transaction purpose as gift to self. She was creating a hidden stash, money she could keep even if Marcus divorced her. Even more damning, Shed attempted to remove me entirely from the joint account, wanting to make it solely hers. The bank had blocked the transaction because it required my signature, but the attempt was documented. Electronic records showed 3 separate tries. Patricia's eyes gleamed when she saw this. This is intent. She wasn't just spending recklessly. She was planning to cut you off completely and steal your entire pension permanently. This elevates everything. She filed an amended police report, adding evidence of attempted fraud and financial exploitation with intent to permanently deprive me of my assets. The police detective assigned to the case, Detective Sarah Morrison, reviewed the evidence and recommended criminal charges. The net was closing around Brenda, and she was starting to realize it. Patricia filed an emergency motion for a court hearing to freeze the account and remove Brenda as a joint holder. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out, which in legal terms was lightning fast. Judge Linda Morrison, no relation to the detective, was assigned to the case. She had a reputation for being tough, fair, and particularly protective of vulnerable populations. Those 2 weeks were tense. Patricia prepared me for testimony like I was her most important witness. We went over every detail, every conversation, every document. She taught me to speak clearly, stick to facts, show emotion, but not break down. I'd never testified in court before, and I was terrified. The morning of the hearing, I put on my best suit, which now hung loosely on my diminished frame. Patricia drove me to the courthouse. Marcus met us there, standing beside us. Head filed for divorce the previous week. Brenda and her lawyer sat on the opposite side of the courtroom. She was wearing an expensive dress I recognized from the bank statements. $2,000. Shed bought it with my money. The hearing began. Patricia presented our case methodically. She entered the bank records into evidence. The forensic accounting report, my medical records showing weight loss and malnutrition, photographs of my empty house, witness statements from neighbors, Gerald's deposition, Detective Morrison's preliminary investigation report. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Patricia asked me to tell my story, in my own words. I spoke for 20 minutes. I explained my loneliness after Dorothy died, my desire to help my son, Brenda's request and promises, my agreement to add her to the account, the immediate drain of funds, the $50 weekly allowance, the hunger, the cold, the skipped medications, collapsing on my kitchen floor. I kept my voice steady, but tears came when I talked about Emma and Jake's confusion, about feeling ashamed, about believing I deserved this somehow for being foolish. Brenda's lawyer, Wright, tried to cross-examine me. He implied I was senile, forgetful, that I'd given Brenda permission to spend freely. Patricia objected repeatedly. Judge Morrison sustained most objections and told Wright to stick to relevant questions. Then Brenda took the stand. Wright had clearly coached her. She wore minimal makeup, a modest dress, spoke softly. She claimed Casper had begged her to manage his finances because he was overwhelmed. Shed paid his essential bills, she insisted. The other purchases were her own money from savings. Patricia's cross-examination was devastating. She pulled out bank records, showing Brenda had no savings account with significant funds. She showed receipts, time-stamped and account-stamped, proving every luxury purchase came directly from my account. She displayed the attempt to remove me from the account entirely. Miss Holloway, Did my client ask you to manage his bills? Yes, initially. Did he ask you to spend $4,000 on furniture for your house? That was a misunderstanding of available funds. Did he ask you to spend $2,000 at a casino? Brenda hesitated. I was under stress. Did he ask you to buy yourself a $2,000 dress? I deserved something nice after caring for his needs. Patricia's voice was sharp as a blade. You cared for his needs by leaving him with $12 and no food. Brenda's composure cracked. Hess exaggerating. He could have asked me for more money. He did ask. You told him to stop being dramatic. You threatened him with a conservatorship proceeding if he complained. Isn't that true? Wright objected. Judge Morrison overruled it and told Brenda to answer. I was trying to protect him from himself, Brenda said weakly. Patricia pulled out her final piece of evidence. Social media posts. Brenda at expensive restaurants. Brenda showing off new purchases. Brenda at the casino with friends. All time stamped during the 3 months she controlled my account. All with captions like treating myself and living my best life. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and looked at Brenda with undisguised disgust. Miss Holloway, you claim stress justified a $2,000 shopping spree. What do you call leaving a 65-year-old man eating one meal a day in a cold house because you spent his survival money on your lifestyle? Brenda didn't answer. Judge Morrison's ruling was swift and absolute. Effective immediately, Brenda was removed from the account. All remaining funds were frozen and returned to my sole control. Brenda was ordered to appear for a criminal investigation interview. The judge recommended the prosecutor pursue charges. Patricia had won the first battle. Outside the courthouse, news cameras were waiting. The story had grown. Daughter-in-law, accused of stealing elderly man's pension, ran on local news that evening. Brenda's face was shown entering the courthouse. The reporter detailed the $23,000 in luxury spending while I starved. The community reaction was volcanic. Brenda's social media was flooded with condemnation. Friends deleted and blocked her. The private school where Emma and Jake attended called Marcus to discuss the situation, suggesting it might be better if the children transferred. Brenda's book club uninvited her. Her gym membership was mysteriously revoked. Her world was collapsing, but Patricia wasn't done. Marcus filed for divorce on grounds of financial misconduct and emotional abuse. He moved temporarily into my house with Emma and Jake. For the first time in months, my home filled with life. Cartoons in the morning. Homework at the kitchen table. Kids laughing and running through the hallway. Marcus cooked dinners, helped with repairs, and spent evenings apologizing. I should have seen it, he said one night after the kids were asleep. I should have protected you instead of protecting my own comfort. I was a coward, Dad. I'm so sorry. I told him what I'd learned. Abuse makes victims of everyone in its orbit. You were trapped, too. What matters now is that you found the courage to break free. That's what I'll remember. We were rebuilding our relationship brick by brick. Marcus started therapy to understand how Head enabled Brenda's behavior. He talked about being attracted to her confidence initially, not realizing it masked narcissistic manipulation. He was learning to be the man he wanted to be, the father Emma and Jake deserved. Patricia had moved into a hotel nearby but visited daily. She set up a new bank account for me at a completely different bank with enhanced security protocols. She established a trust structure where she was trustee, meaning any large withdrawals required her co-signature. She wasn't controlling me but protecting me from future exploitation. She set up automatic payments for all my bills. She created a budget and showed me how to monitor everything online with new secure passwords. My weight began returning. My strength returned. I started walking to the diner again on Wednesdays, where the staff welcomed me back with genuine warmth. Harold and I resumed our friendship, no longer shadowed by my shame. Mrs. Patterson invited me to her grandson's birthday party. I was reconnecting with the world. Meanwhile, Brenda faced consequences. She lost the house in the divorce settlement. Marcus got primary custody of Emma and Jake. She was allowed supervised visitation once a month. The criminal charges resulted in a plea bargain. Patricia negotiated terms. Brenda would plead guilty to financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, receive 3 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory restitution of the full $23,417. If she failed to make monthly payments or violated probation, she'd face 18 months in jail. Brenda, facing the alternative of a trial she'd certainly lose and possible prison time, accepted the plea. She moved to a small apartment, took 2 jobs, and began making monthly restitution payments of $400. The grandchildren's relationship with their mother grew strained. Emma and Jake spent every other weekend with me now. We fell back into our old routines, baking cookies, movie nights, talking about school and friends and their feelings. Emma asked difficult questions. "Why did Mom do that to you, Grandpa?" I thought carefully before answering. Sometimes people lose their way. They make terrible choices because they want things more than they value people. It doesn't mean we stop loving them, but it means we create boundaries to protect ourselves. Jake, who was quieter about his feelings, hugged me one day and said, "I'm glad you're okay now." That simple statement from a 7-year-old meant everything. 6 months after the court hearing, something unexpected happened. Brenda's mother, Sharon, reached out. Sharon was 70 years old, a retired schoolteacher who'd always been kind to me during holidays before Brenda's betrayal. She asked to meet for coffee. At a small cafe downtown, Sharon looked aged and sad. She apologized on behalf of her daughter, tears in her eyes. Then she told me something that made the whole story make terrible sense. Brenda did something similar to her grandmother, my mother, about 15 years ago, Sharon said quietly. She borrowed money and never repaid it, then tried to get my mother to change her will. I had to pay back $17,000 secretly to keep my mother from pressing charges. I thought Brenda had learned. I thought marriage and children had changed her. I was wrong. I enabled her by covering up her past. And you paid the price. I'm so deeply sorry. Sharon offered to help with the restitution, paying $5,000 immediately from her savings. She handed me a check. "It's not your responsibility," I said. "It's not about responsibility," Sharon replied. "It's about doing what's right when your family does wrong." I raised Brenda. I spoiled her. I made excuses. I'm accountable too. I accepted the check, not because I needed the money, but because I understood Sharon needed to give it. She needed to make amends for her daughter's sins. Sharon met with Brenda afterward. Patricia told me later that Sharon told Brenda she was ashamed of her, that she'd enabled her for too long, and that Brenda needed to face consequences without her mother rescuing her. For the first time in Brenda's life, Sharon was holding her accountable. Brenda broke down during that conversation. Whether it was genuine remorse or self-pity, I didn't know. But something seemed to shift in her after that. Over the following months, Brenda made her restitution payments on time. She completed her community service at a senior center, ironically helping elderly people with paperwork and errands. The supervised visits with Emma and Jake continued, though the relationship remained distant. She sent me letters, handwritten apologies that became more thoughtful and less self-justifying over time. I read them but didn't respond at first. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. By my 66th birthday in August, nearly a year after the nightmare began, my life was unrecognizable from its lowest point. Patricia threw me a party at my house. The living room was packed. Harold and Mrs. Patterson, Frank Delgado and his wife, Gerald from the bank. Detective Morrison stopped by off-duty. Marcus, Emma, and Jake. Patricia had even invited Grace, a widow I'd met at the senior center, and started having coffee with occasionally. The house was warm, full of laughter and conversation. Marcus and Emma presented me with a photo album they'd made together. Every page was a memory. Pictures from when the kids were babies, Dorothy smiling at our 40th anniversary. Family vacations. The last page was recent. Me and the grandkids at the park, all of us laughing. Patricia's gift was framed. It was a copy of Judge Morrison's order removing Brenda from my account, with a handwritten note from Patricia. "You taught me to fight for what's right. Thanks for letting me fight for you. Love, your daughter." I was surrounded by people who'd fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. People who'd refused to let me disappear into shame and isolation. People who proved that community and love could overcome betrayal. As the party wound down and guests departed, the doorbell rang one last time. Patricia answered it and went very still. She called me to the door. Brenda stood on my porch, looking small and tired. She was thinner, her clothes plain, her hair pulled back simply. She held an envelope. "I won't come in," she said quietly. "I just need to give you this." It was a cashier's check for the remaining balance of the restitution. $18,417. Paid in full. 2 years early. "I sold my mother's, grandmother's, ring that shed given me," Brenda said. "I used my savings. I took a loan. I'm done paying in pieces. This needs to be finished." She handed Marcus a second envelope. "These are papers terminating my parental rights. Emma and Jake are better off without me in their lives. I'm too damaged. I've hurt too many people. They deserve better than a mother who steals from her own family." Marcus started to protest, but Brenda held up her hand. "I need you to know something, Casper. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I finally understand what I did. I didn't just take your money. I took your dignity, your security, your peace. I made you feel worthless when you were only trying to help. No amount of money repays that. But this is all I have to give." She looked at me with clear, tired eyes. "I hope someday you can be at peace with what happened. I hope Emma and Jake grow up strong despite having me as their mother. And I hope Marcus finds happiness with someone who treats him and his family with the respect I never did." She turned and walked to an old sedan parked at the curb, driving away without looking back. The room was silent. Patricia closed the door slowly. Marcus was crying. I held the check, feeling something complex. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just sadness for all the damage done. Relief that it was truly over, and a fragile hope that maybe, somewhere down a long road, Brenda might actually become better. 1 year later, my life has settled into something I never expected after Dorothy died. Something richer and more connected than I'd imagined possible. My health is completely restored. I'm back to my normal weight of 185 pounds. My blood pressure is controlled. I walk 3 miles every morning. I volunteer at the senior center twice a week, helping others navigate financial systems and recognize warning signs of exploitation. My story has helped 3 other families come forward with similar situations, finding courage in my example. Patricia calls me every Sunday evening. We talk for an hour about everything and nothing. Work, weather, memories, plans. She requested a transfer to her firm's Columbus office and moved back 6 months ago. She bought a condo 15 minutes from my house. She has dinner with me and Marcus' family every Thursday. She's dating a professor from Ohio State, a kind man who makes her laugh. She seems happier, more balanced, like helping me reminded her that life exists outside courtrooms and case files. Marcus has transformed in ways I'm proud to witness. He got promoted to senior manager at his company. He's confident now, engaged, present. He's dating a woman named Beth who's a nurse at the children's hospital. Beth is genuine and kind, treats Emma and Jake with patience, and includes me naturally in their family activities. There's no drama, no manipulation, just healthy, mutual respect. Emma is 12 now, thriving in her new school. She plays soccer and writes short stories. She calls me every Wednesday evening just to chat about her day. Jake is 9, obsessed with dinosaurs and building elaborate Lego cities in my living room on weekends. They're well-adjusted, in therapy, and processing their mother's absence in healthy ways. Brenda moved to Arizona about 6 months ago. Sharon keeps me updated occasionally. Brenda works with elderly care patients, helping them with daily tasks and companionship. According to Sharon, she's found some kind of purpose in protecting others from the exploitation she once perpetrated. Whether that's genuine redemption or performative penance, I don't know, but Sharon believes her daughter is truly trying to change. The restitution money, combined with careful budgeting and Patricia's trust structure, has restored my financial security. I have savings again. I can afford my medications, my utilities, my small pleasures. I'm planning a trip to visit Dorothy's sister in Florida next month. But more than the money, I've regained something I didn't realize I'd lost before all this happened. Community. Connection. Voice. Harold and I have coffee every Tuesday morning at the diner. Mrs. Patterson and I are part of a neighborhood watch program. Grace and I have been dating for 3 months, taking things slowly, enjoying companionship without rushing toward anything. She's warm and funny, and she makes me feel like life still holds surprises. The house that felt like a tomb after Dorothy died now feels alive again. Marcus installed a new deck where we have family barbecues. Emma's artwork covers my refrigerator. Jake's dinosaur books are stacked on my coffee table. Patricia's law school diploma hangs in my hallway next to Marcus' college graduation photo. Last Thanksgiving, my house overflowed with people. Patricia and her boyfriend, Marcus, Beth, Emma, and Jake. Harold and his daughter's family from Indianapolis, Mrs. Patterson and her son, Grace. Frank Delgado stopped by with his wife. Gerald from the bank brought pie. As I looked around the crowded, noisy, warm house, I thought about how close I'd come to losing all of this. How isolation and shame almost killed me. How Brenda's betrayal nearly destroyed not just my finances but my will to keep living. But fighting back changed everything. Finding my voice, accepting help, letting people who loved me see my vulnerability, brought a richness to my life I'd never experienced before. On Christmas Eve, Emma asked me a question while we were decorating cookies. "Grandpa, are you still mad at my mom?" I thought about it carefully. "No, sweetheart. I'm not mad anymore. What she did was wrong, and she's facing consequences. But staying angry would only hurt me, not her. I've chosen to let go of the anger and hold on to the lessons." "What lessons?" she asked, sprinkling red sugar on a star. "That asking for help isn't weakness. That family means protecting each other, not using each other. That even terrible things can lead to good things if you face them honestly. And that love is stronger than betrayal when you let the right people in." Emma hugged me, getting flour on my shirt. "You're the strongest person I know, Grandpa." "I'm not sure about that. But I'm here. I'm healthy. I'm surrounded by love. And I'm using my story to help others." Last month, I spoke at a community center event about elder financial abuse prevention. 70 people attended. I told my story honestly, including my mistakes, the shame of accepting help, the pride that nearly killed me, the isolation that enabled abuse. Afterward, a man in his 70s approached me with tears in his eyes. "My son's been asking me to add his wife to my accounts. Something felt wrong, but I didn't want to seem untrusting. Your story just saved me." That moment made everything worthwhile. The humiliation, the hunger, the legal battles. If my nightmare prevents someone else's, it has meaning. I want to talk directly to anyone listening who might be facing something similar, or who knows someone who is. I'm 66 years old, and I've learned something crucial that might save your life or someone you love. Trust is precious, beautiful, and necessary. But trust without boundaries is vulnerability waiting to be exploited. When someone asks to control your money, your health decisions, or your future, setting protective limits isn't insulting them. It's honoring yourself. Love shouldn't require you to surrender your autonomy. Help shouldn't require you to sacrifice your security. Family doesn't mean unlimited access to everything you've worked for. But here's the deeper truth that saved my life. When betrayal comes, and sometimes it will come from places you never expected, don't suffer in silence. Shame is the predator's best weapon. Shame keeps victims hidden and abusers protected. I almost died because I was too proud to admit I'd been fooled, too embarrassed to ask for help. The moment I let people in, everything changed. Harold's phone call brought Patricia home. Patricia's fierce love brought justice. Marcus' choice to change brought reconciliation. The community's support reminded me that I mattered, that I wasn't alone, that people cared. Evil thrives in darkness and silence. Justice requires light and voice. Recovery demands community. If you're facing financial abuse, health neglect, isolation, or any form of exploitation, please hear me. You are not too old, too tired, too compromised, or too far gone to fight back. Reach out to someone you trust. Call Adult Protective Services. Contact an attorney. Tell your story to someone who will listen. You deserve dignity. You deserve security. You deserve to live your final decades in peace, not in fear. And if you know someone who seems withdrawn, who's lost weight, who's isolated or struggling, don't wait for them to ask for help. Show up. Ask direct questions. Look closer. Be persistent. Your intervention might save their life like Harold saved mine. I also learned something about forgiveness. It's not about excusing what someone did. It's not about reconciling with people who hurt you. Forgiveness is releasing the poison of hatred so it stops destroying you from the inside. I don't have a relationship with Brenda. I probably never will. But I'm not carrying rage toward her anymore because that rage was hurting me, not her. I've chosen peace over vengeance, healing over bitterness. Brenda took $23,000 from me, but she couldn't take my worth. She couldn't take my family. She couldn't take my capacity for joy, for connection, for love. In fighting back, I got something worth far more than the money she stole. I got my family back. I got my voice back. I got my life back. I got a community that rallied around me. I got a deeper relationship with my children and grandchildren. I got purpose in helping others avoid my mistakes. That's a return on investment that no thief can ever steal. So here's my message to you. Protect yourself, but don't isolate yourself. Set boundaries, but don't build walls. Trust carefully, but still trust. And when the worst happens, when you're on your kitchen floor thinking it's over, reach for the phone. Call someone. Anyone. Let them help you stand back up. Because on the other side of that humiliating phone call, that embarrassing admission, that vulnerable request for help, there's a community of people who are waiting to fight for you. You just have to let them in. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone you trusted betrayed that trust? How did you find the courage to speak up and fight back? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched you, moved you, or taught you something valuable, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story that might change your perspective or save someone you love. And please share this video with anyone who might need to hear it. You never know whose life you might impact by simply passing along a story. Thank you for listening to my journey. Thank you for giving me a space to share what happened, the lessons I learned, and the hope I found on the other side of betrayal. I hope your life is filled with people who protect you, who fight for you, and who remind you that you're never too old to start over, never too broken to heal, and never too alone to find community. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember that your story isn't over until you say it is.